Commission will now take up matters to do with special one-day license applications for malt beverages and wine only. If your name is called, please go to the center of the hall, the room. Gabriella Thurman for Saturday, November 13th, 2010, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. The event is the Rising Minds Benefit to be held at the Brood Awakening at 67 Market Street. Thomas McKay of Backstage Concessions, Inc. for Wednesday, November 3rd, 2010, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The event is the Distinguished Alumni Awards Dinner to be held at the Cyrus W. Irish Auditorium at Lowell High School, 50th Father Morissette Boulevard. Colleen McDonald's here on behalf of Mr. McKay.
Oh, wow, I guess I got to fill in for Wally. You guys have both had the speech before, right? Oh, Gabriel, you're new. You get the speech. I'm going to give you the Chairman Bayless speech, but I'm going to give you the abbreviated version. All right, if we grant the license is granted in your name, not the business's name, which means that if anything goes wrong, there's one person and one person only who's on the hook for that going wrong, which would be the person whose name is that license, which is you. All right. While you're running it, please, keep in mind that if anything goes wrong, feel free to pick up the phone, call the police department. They'll send somebody out. It's not a problem. All right, it's better if you call than if they respond to the scene of something happening, okay? I would also caution you, if you're gonna make the call, pre-program in the number for the department itself. If you call 911, it's gonna put you into a state database, I think where Framingham or somewhere, and then they're just gonna relay it. So it's faster if you dial the police department directly, put it on your phone, keep your phone with you. What kind of, these are reasonable hours. Do you have any questions?
No. No questions.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And I'll second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you
Good luck.
both very much. And just for the record, Chairman Bayless would have been here himself, but he's under the weather. We're just getting updated on that, so.
Commission will now take up the matter to do with the change of manager for a restaurant licensee. Is Michael Karras here? Michael Karras? Mr. Karras is not with us right now. Should I just read it?
Just put it to the end of the,
Yeah, let's hold it till
let's hold it to the end.
Okay. Continue it.
Just move it right here.
Commission will move forward to the next item on the agenda, change for club manager. Application filed by the Sporting and Athletic Club of Lowell, Inc., an all-alcoholic beverage club licensee at 525 Market Street, for change of manager of record to Sue Ellen Kazanjian of Lowell, Mass.
Hey, good afternoon. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Sue Ellen Kazanjian.
And Attorney Greg Curtis from Goldman and Curtis in Lowell.
Okay, and please tell us, you're going to be taking over, effective, what's the plan?
Basically, Sue Ellen has been involved with the Sporting and Athletic Club for several years, and at this point, because of the death of the prior manager, Ernest Ames, back in March, we're going to have Sue Ellen take over that managerial position, handling the liquor license. She's putting in 15 to 20 hours a week at the location. She's familiar with it. She does have past experience with alcohol serving in the past, so I think she'll be a good fit for the club. And it's as you know, a private for-profit club. It's got a few members, and it's not a busy place, but she'll keep an eye on it, and I think she knows all the parameters and listen to the board's recommendations.
Okay, you've worked there before, or you've been,
Yes, sir. And I've worked waitressing in the past,
okay.
serving alcohol and so forth at other establishments.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, I'll second the motion. All right, motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I think it's just got to go to Boston to get approved.
Yes.
Let's go Boston.
he just dropped off the plot plan to add to that. And I'll get those up to the engineer, so I'll send one up to the engineer's office as well. Okay. Just we're next, so, we're next. Do you need it? Do you need additional copies of the plot plan?
Okay. Commission will now open a public hearing on the application for a malt beverages and wine only packaged goods store license by Jay's Beer and Wine, Inc., Yojendra Patel, President, for premises at 166 Gorham Street, one room for retail and storage, approximately 1,632 square feet. It is requested that Yojendra Patel be approved as the manager of record for Jay's Beer and Wine, Inc. Members of the commission, this application required legal notice to be published in the local newspaper. Also required the applicant to notify property owners touching in any church, school, or hospital within 500 feet of premises. There is 2 churches within a 500-foot radius of the proposed location at 166 Gorham Street.
Okay, and were they notified?
The applicant's attorney notified both and all property owners touching, as well as the return receipt, I believe, on one of the churches was not received.
Right, we have evidence that it was delivered, you have that in your package.
Okay.
And it had not, the signed return card has not, the green card has not come back to us. It was published, the notice was published in the Lowell Sun on October 8th. We mailed them out on the Monday, October 11th. My experience has been is that they attempt one time and then they attempt again, leaving it at for 10 days. So if it got there, today would be the last day, and they would get the card back saying it was unsigned for. So we don't have that yet, but when I receive either the green card or the unsigned documents, I'll forward that to Mr. Nguyen.
Okay. All right. I think the last time we were in and we were talking about this, there was an issue with respect to the separate addresses for the premises. And I think this was an issue that we hit with another location where we were talking about subdividing an existing piece of property. That was when we were doing the brewery and the Lowell Beer Works, when they were becoming 2 locations. And I know that the ABCC kicked back the paperwork we had sent down because of that. So where are we as far as having the property officially recognized as distinct? That may be a stopper before we even go forward.
Right, where we are right now is that I just received today the plot plan from, it's right that after our last meeting, I was here, if you recall, 2 weeks ago. At that time, we addressed that by contacting the city engineers department. The engineer requested that in order for us to have the property properly recognized by the city as an appropriate street address or an official street address, they needed a plot plan. I just got that plot plan here today. So in terms of, my understanding is that I need to bring this up to the city engineer's office for their approval of 2 separate addresses. 166, as you see on the plot plan, which is actually the address that the city has on file at the city clerk's office with respect to Jay's Variety, but it's not recognized by the engineers department as an official city address.
That's still listed as Charles Street, correct?
15 Charles Street, correct.
All right. And this is going to create an address of 168?
This is gonna, what the city engineer will do with that plot plan, showing that the two front doors are on Gorham Street, will now be recognized as 166, which will be the Gorham Street Variety, Inc., and then 168 would be a separate street address, regardless of whether you choose to approve it as Jay's Beer and Wine. It's still going to be recognized as still be 168. And actually, that other building that's off to the side of it, to the side of the building, is recognized as 170. Is officially recognized as 170 by the city of Lowell.
Okay.
So Jay's Beer and Wine would be known as 168.
Correct. If approved here, then that would be the official street address.
So we have to amend the application to,
The application is, it's presently filed, would have to be changed from 166 to 168, should it go forward.
And Law Department, what do we need to do as far as that issue? What kind of a hurdle? What issue? Well, not just entrances, but recognized independent, my recollection from a little bit ago was that the ABCC had originally kicked back the division of the properties between 2 locations because they were the same address, and it was an upstairs, downstairs type of situation, and they said we couldn't have 2 licenses at the same address.
Right, they want segregation and different addresses.
Okay. So procedurally, can we go forward on this if it hasn't been recognized as a separate address? Or do we need to have it recognized as a separate address to go forward on it?
I don't know what you can, I know what you probably should do. Yeah,
Okay.
I would think look, you need to get it approved, the address first. And I know this was probably an inconvenience, but I think the cleaner way is, look, the engineer's office certifies it as 168. That's what it is. If you know it's going to be certified like that, I guess you could work on the assumption, but technically, I think it's safer to wait until the address has been separated.
Okay. Let me ask, is there anybody here that's, for the public portion of this, is there anybody here to speak in favor or in opposition to this location? Let's start with.
I believe we have one gentleman in favor.
In favor. Anyone in favor? In favor? Sir, please approach the microphone and introduce yourself.
My name is Andrew Simmons. I've been knowing these guys ever since they was down there. So I say, give them a chance.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Is there anyone to speak in favor? In favor? Is there anyone who wants to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Okay. I only ask that because if there were people who were already here, if we continue it, I don't want to make them come back a second
No, you
time.
can, right, you can, you've opened
So
it.
I want to leave that portion of it open if we're going to, you're advising me that we should wait until the 168 is official?
Right, because right now, you technically don't have, I mean, the legal address you have isn't going to be the legal address of what it ends up to be. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. Attorney Zane, let me ask you your preference. Would your client consent to adjourning this over to the November 4th date? Just, if you think that's sufficient time to get this approved? Because we're going to need to amend the application to reflect that as well.
Right, no, we don't have any, problem with that at all.
And I know that as we get to the end of the year, most people probably don't want to pay a license fee for 2010 just to go ahead and renew it in 2011, so.
Correct, plus, in addition, we're not under a time frame because there's still, if approved, here and then in Boston, there's a couple months' worth of construction that needs to take place anyway. So to do it neater, and again, we thought we'd have this stuff yesterday for the engineering department. It just got hand delivered to me here tonight.
It happens.
So,
Want to discuss anything on the plan that you have on the
Yeah.
floor plan,
Okay,
as opposed to what was discussed, so that,
sure, while we got you here. The floor plan we got today is a little bit different than the one we had marked up from the last time.
that is correct. The differences I think you'll see were designed so that they are physically two separate buildings. You'd see in the first diagram that was presented as part of the initial application, did not have a separate doorway in between the two, inside of the premises.
Right.
Now it's completely, in the second diagram, that is completely blocked off so that when you're inside the variety store, if you entered at the 166 side of it, there's actually going to be a separate, almost like, it would look like a regular store entrance going from 166 into 168 at the very front of the building.
I'm looking at it, and it looks like there are two different doors. One that's behind the counter here on 166 side, going to behind the register on the 168 side, and another one that's a doorway behind the register on the 168 side, going into the, what's marked as entry 1 on the 166 side.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Commissioner.
It's literally that former wall portion at the very, very bottom.
Where you're looking at the front, are you coming in from?
Let's say I come in from the 166 side through those double doors. All right, I turn to my right. There's currently a platform there marked laundry station. Or sorry, lottery station. And if I go past that, there's a doorway that goes through to the 168 side that goes to the register, or right behind the register of 168.
Correct.
and then there's another entrance.
There's another door, if you will.
Just a few feet further in, going from behind one register to behind the other register.
Correct. That doorway there, the closest to the front of the store, if you will, is going to be, there's a door there that is going to be very similar to like you'd walk into a department store, type the glass door that leads to an area where you're going to see there's a register area there,
Right.
okay? The door to the right-hand side of that, which is labeled 168, that's a sliding door. That's why you don't see the swinging open
Right.
doors. That's a electronically controlled sliding door.
Right. I guess what I'm,
But this doesn't address, you can still go into 166 and go into 168.
I guess this is the door we're really concerned with here,
Right.
is as you come into the lobby.
That, correct, but if 168 is not open, that door is going to be locked. so that you can't, I use the example, it's very similar to the type of door you see up at Store 38. When Store 38 isn't, there's a very similar setup, variety store on one side, liquor store on the other side. And those doors, if the liquor store is not open, those doors are locked and you cannot access it from 166.
Okay, but that's one single premise with one license. That's just the way that they designed it. This is going to be, I guess, separate owners of separate premises, right? Under the lease agreement.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not one owner, one business.
Correct, it's two separate entities.
Okay.
And there's no liquor being sold at the variety store.
I just think the way that this is designed is gonna cause a problem with the ABCC.
Yes,
That's how I feel. I don't,
It's my concern too, is that they're gonna, we always get these situations where we have doors that pass through from point A to point B. And I'm concerned about that. Is there anything else?
that's just the one thing.
Okay.
But I'll just make a motion to continue to, the November 4th meeting.
Number 4.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, I'll second that motion.
Okay,
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
thank
All
you.
right, we'll see you then.
Thank you.
And do you need this, or is? that a
No,
copy
that's for
us?
your file.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Chuck E. Cheese guy is here. Got a kid from Chuck E. Cheese.
Good afternoon.
All right. Okay, we're going back to the, sorry. I wasn't sure if you meant this. Okay. Oh, sure.
Okay, we're going to backtrack a little bit here. With respect to its approval of a restaurant manager, this is an application filed on behalf of CEC Entertainment, Inc., doing business as Chuck E. Cheese, malt beverage and wine only restaurant licensee at 209 Plain Street, for a change of manager record to Michael Karras of Saugus, Mass.
All right. Good afternoon. If you could introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is Michael Karras,
Okay.
21 Clark Street, Saugus.
And what's the plan for the change of manager? How's that going to work?
The other manager got promoted to a Portland store. I've been with Chuck E. Cheese in 6 years. I've managed other Chuck E. Cheeses with liquor licenses in Methuen, Mass. and Newington, New Hampshire.
And do you have any problems with underage service in either of those locations?
Never. Our POS system, point of sale system, includes that we enter the date of birth in order to sell any alcoholic beverage electronically. So we have to ID every single guest, whether they appear to be 21 or 84. We have to ID every single guest that comes in.
And what's the training program that you have for your employees?
We have a strict alcohol training program. Clearly, if they're under 18, we tell them that they cannot handle alcoholic beverages either at a sale or including the bussing of a table. They would have to get anybody over 18, preferably a manager, to either sell the beverage or bus the table. Again, our POS system, we enter every cashier's date of birth once they're put into our system. And if they are under 18, then they can electronically not even sell a beverage.
Well, it looks like you know your stuff, Michael. I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah. And just for the record, police department, have we had any issues down there?
No problems at Chuck E. Cheese.
All right, I'll second the motion then. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you.
Good luck.
Have a great day.
Mr. Karras, this will be, application will be sent to ABCC office.
Okay.
Once they approve that, I'll give you a call.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, look, I had to ask.
Members of the commission, we have 2 hearings on police complaints. both regarding the same licensee, the Middle Street Village Inc. The way it's in order is that the one that was scheduled for today is first. The one that had been scheduled for October 7th and continued to today is the second hearing. Is that the preference of the commission and starting off at this matter, or do you want to wish to reverse it?
Yeah, let's I guess, reverse it and put them in the order that they occurred. So, I think,
Okay.
right, ABCC doesn't like us jumping back and forth. Or Mike,
Each one should be separate and distinct. Which one you do first, I don't think it matters, but they want,
they want us to treat them separate and distinct.
Right.
So, let's stay linear.
So we'll do with the one that's,
The one that was continued to today. Let's do that one first.
so the commission will now open a hearing
Besides, I think we
on
have
the
people
allegation
here
of
for that.
misconduct as charged by Deborah Fiddle, the Deputy Superintendent of Police, against the Middle Street Village Inc., doing business as the Village Smokehouse. Alan F. Kaplan is the manager of record, the all-alcoholic beverage restaurant licensee at 92-98 Middle Street.
Please come on up and introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you. My name is Robert Allen. I'm the attorney representing the Smokehouse. To my right is Alan Kaplan, the president and manager of the Village Smokehouse. And just before we begin, I want to thank Mr. Nguyen and the board for allowing me the opportunity to continue the matter 2 weeks ago. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. With respect to this, do you want a more formal reading into the record, or would you waive that?
You can waive it. I've read the police report to the matter, and if you may help me out, I'm not sure procedurally how you handle it here. If you'd like to, do you formally have the police officer, or would you like to hear our version?
What we'll do is we'll ask for a summary, we'll call the police officer up, and then we'll allow you to ask any questions.
Great.
So, if we could have a summary of the events?
Gentlemen, on August 27th of this year, Officer Charles Panic responded to a report of a stabbing on Palmer Street at 1:35 a.m. Upon arrival, he found a 25-year-old male suffering from stab wounds. Officer Panic's investigation into the incident led him to the Village Smokehouse. He found out that there had been a fight there earlier in the evening. Officer Panic spoke with Mr. Kaplan and a security guard who was on duty, and he learned that the same victim had been provided with ice by Mr. Kaplan for injuries that apparently he had suffered in a fight there at approximately 12:40 a.m., approximately an hour earlier. And a check of police department records found that no call was received by the police department regarding this earlier fight.
All right. Officer Panic, why don't you come on up? We've gotten the summary. Why don't you fill us in on the details?
Right, sir. Well, as the captain mentioned, there was a stabbing nearby earlier. And when I responded to that and I investigated, I determined there was a fight that had happened in the Village Smokehouse about an hour earlier. And it's unclear at this point where the stabbing actually took place. But like I said, I found the victim about a half a block away. And as I was assisting the EMTs with securing the scene and whatnot, the Village Smokehouse was letting out because it was about closing time, 1:30, 1:45, somewhere around that time frame. And there was a lot of people acting noisy and boisterous in Middle Street, and none of them. It was a nice summer night still. Nobody wanted to go home, so I was trying to move the crowd along, and that wasn't working. A couple of arrests were made, and it was kind of a hectic situation.
Okay. As far as your investigation into the fight, can you tell us about that?
Yes, I spoke to several of the victims' friends, Mr. Kaplan, one of the security guards, and as we had mentioned, there was a fight there earlier in the evening where the stabbing victim was involved, and it looks like he was escorted out of the premises. And he was stabbed at some point somewhere between the restaurant and where I found him. It's unclear to me where that was because I got a lot of conflicting statements.
All right, but is it clear that the stabbing happened after the fight and outside?
After the fight, but I can't tell you with any degree of certainty where it happened.
Okay. And you said you had statements from somebody about provision of ice?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me about that? Who provided the ice, or?
Mr. Kaplan said he provided it, the owner.
Do you know any of the details, or what kind of We talk about a fight, was it a shoving match, or punching, or what was the,
It didn't sound like it was anything too serious. I mean, some shoving, a couple punches, but it didn't seem like there were any serious injuries sustained at that point.
okay.
I don't have any questions, no.
All right, at this point. Sir, do you have any questions for the officer?
I don't have any questions for the officer.
Okay, all right. All right, well, thank you, Officer Panic. Do you guys have anything you want to? All right. With that, all right, let's move on. You have anything you want to add, or?
Yeah,
is the side of it, or?
Well, I guess I want to, clearly this was a incident with a lot of gray area in between. I just want to let you know, and my client, he was there himself that night, and as the officer stated, explained to the officer exactly what happened. I want to fill you in on some of the details. As Mr. Kaplan informed me, there was an altercation in the smokehouse. That was a Thursday night. It's the busier night of the week for the smokehouse. They hire a detail police officer every Thursday night. On that particular night, I understand the police department was not able to fill it. Of course, Murphy's Law, that has to be the night there has to be a problem there. But essentially, this was really a one punch where the alleged victim, who ultimately got stabbed, was arguing with this one individual. The individual punched him, knocked him down. Before anything else happened, security showed up there. The person who threw the punch left peacefully. Mr. Kaplan took the other individual into the kitchen with his two friends to diffuse the situation first and foremost, and to see if he needed any medical assistance, see if he wanted the police called, see if he needed an ambulance. It wasn't much of an altercation or a fight. There wasn't much of a mark on his face. Mr. Kaplan provided him with an ice bag for his face. I think if there was one issue that probably we could have done better is to call the police immediately, which obviously is why we're here. I'll tell you this. This is as you may know, this is today's the 2-year anniversary of the smokehouse, and Mr. Kaplan's been a restaurateur for 23 years. Prior to that, he actually spent 20 years in the security business. He designed the security for Great Woods, which is now Comcast Center, for Sullivan Stadium, and pretty much handled all Don Law, which is a large promoter from Maine, all of New England area. He designed the security for them. So he has while that's kind of in his younger days and he's focused on the restaurant business, he does have a lot of experience in handling these type of situations, and it's always been his experience the best thing to do is diffuse by separating the two, seeing if there's any issues. Again, the aggressor, or the person who threw the punch, left peacefully, went one way. The other person stayed there for 20 minutes. By the time he left, he was calm, and everything was fine. And to be honest, that's the last we heard of it until the officer came into the smokehouse approximately an hour later, saying there was a stabbing down the street around the corner. There is a establishment around the corner that has an outdoor bar area there, and it was right in front of that bar area where the individual was laying down on the ground. There's no indication that this person would have been in a position to get up and run and to go to this location. It seemed that and again, it was an hour later, and we thought we diffused the situation correctly. Had the police detail officer been present that night, perhaps he would have told us to call the police. And in hindsight, we will call the police, and we've done some training which relates to our next violation. And included in that training was a review of your current policies related to, essentially the policy is now get the manager involved, and the manager knows that they have to call the police. So no, we didn't call the police, nor did we think it rose to the level that it needed police. One punch down, separated, no issue. Both people left peacefully. We went on with the night. It didn't get any crowd riled up. So That's what I have, perhaps in the technical sense, a violation, but we thought we handled it correctly at the time.
Well, as a restaurant owner, Mr. Kaplan should be aware of the city ordinance that if there's any disturbance, he should call the police, correct? I mean, if he's been a restaurateur for 23 years, he should be aware of that, correct?
Yes.
And he was on the scene that night. It wasn't like it was one of his employees that didn't call the police. The owner didn't call the police.
That's correct.
Correct. I mean, I don't think we've had any other problems at the Village Smokehouse in the past, but God forbid, Mr. McCready, something worse happened other than getting stabbed, if he, died, without being too morbid. It would be a lot worse for Mr. Kaplan, so I hope he's learned from this, and call the police on everything. That's what we've been telling everyone here. If there's any issue inside your establishment, call the police. They'll take care of it.
You are correct. There, 2 years, there hasn't been any issue there, and as hopefully you've seen the place, Mr. Kaplan's invested a significant amount of money into the building, into the establishment.
Oh, it's understand it. It's been really well done over, and
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's got the restaurant side. I know it's got the bar side. I know it's a popular place on the we call the pre-weekend night of Thursday. But again, you're on the premises. You've got to pick up the phone. I mean, you've got to, because it's not like you had two guys yelling at each other and made a judgment call of separate them and let them go. You had an assault and battery take place in front of witnesses, and you put them both out the door a few minutes apart.
It was a half hour between, but I understand your
Okay,
point.
in any event, it rose to the level of an assault and battery. I mean, this wasn't loud voices. This wasn't, exchange of threats. This wasn't people cursing at each other. This was an assault and battery. I mean,
I understand. The benefit of hindsight is always helpful. I guess when he was on the scene and neither individual wanted to do much, you kind of made a judgment call, and he made the wrong judgment call, and he understands that now.
The first one. I'll make a motion just to put this complaint on file.
We're finding it violation and placing it on file.
Yes.
All right, I'll second the motion. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Let's move on to number 2.
Commission will now open a hearing on the allegation of misconduct as charged by Kenneth E. LaValle, the Superintendent of Police, against the Middle Street Village, Inc., doing business as the Village Smokehouse, Alan F. Kaplan, manager, the all-alcoholic beverage restaurant licensee at 92-98 Middle Street.
Captain, if you could give us a summary?
On September 9th of this year, detectives from the Lowell Police Department, under the command of Lieutenant LaRock, were conducting compliance checks at various establishments in the city. A 20-year-old male was assisting in these compliance checks, and this male carried no identification and only cash that was provided by the police department. Approximately 9:30 that evening, the 20-year-old male entered the Village Smokehouse. He ordered a Bud Light beer from a female bartender, then left the establishment and reported to Lieutenant LaRock and Detective Lavoie. And the lieutenant and Detective Lavoie then entered the Village Smokehouse. They ID'd the bartender as Shannon Guthrie, and they found that Mr. Kaplan was also present that evening. They were both informed of the violation, and Lieutenant LaRock is here to offer testimony.
All right. Lieutenant, why don't you come on up and tell us what happened?
Good afternoon. As the captain said, we conducted a compliance check that evening, approximately 9:30. The subject went into the Village Smokehouse, walked in through the main door, walked into the bar, ordered a Bud Light bottle. He was served by a female bartender with blonde hair. He came back outside, reported the incident to us. We went into the establishment, Detective Lavoie and myself. We spoke to Mr. Kaplan. He eventually brought over the bartender. We spoke to the bartender. She admitted to serving the alcohol. She said there was some confusion about that he had been carded prior to coming into the bar area at the door. They were setting up for the evening. The restaurant was shut down and it was becoming like a nightclub. And they were in the process of moving tables and the bouncers were in the restaurant area. I served Mr. Kaplan with the notice. He signed the form and we left the establishment.
I have no questions for the officer.
You have any questions for the officer?
No, I don't. We'll stipulate that, that there was a violation on the evening. We've went back and reviewed our tapes. The bartender admitted to it. If I may get into some things that we've done since this particular time.
Okay.
As I stated, and as the lieutenant stated, we haven't had any of these violations, and I understand there has been stings in this restaurant that we've passed successfully. We have a pretty good policy where the doormen are in place as of the 9 o'clock hour, and on this particular night, one of the doormen asked the other doorman for assistance moving a table, and at that, whatever that window was, the individual went in there to purchase it, and the bartender sold it. We've explained to our bartenders, and if I may approach, since this time period, we've recertified everybody in the restaurant. We've retrained everybody in the restaurant, and as I spoke of earlier, in that retraining, we've included the policies about notifying managers, and if there's altercation, and notifying police. And we explained to the bartenders that you can't just rely on having the door guy and assuming the door guy has carded the individual. And I can only say that this is not something we're proud of. This is not something that we've ever been accused of in the past. Mr. Kaplan has a restaurant in Brookline celebrating its 24th year, and he doesn't have any infractions of serving to minors. He takes it very seriously. And this particular day, the bartender admitted to it, admitted that she made a mistake, and we're just hoping that this board sees fit to allow us to repair the errors of our ways and try to find the right way to move forward to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
I guess my concern with the Village Smokehouse is I think it's getting a reputation as a place where underage individuals go to drink. From people that I've talked to in the community, it sounds like the Village Smokehouse is getting a reputation of being lax on checking proper identification. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed immediately. Lowell's a college town. The university is here. Middlesex is on this, part of Middlesex campus is on the same street as the Village Smokehouse. So there are definitely going to be underage kids that are going to try to push the limit. And I know having a restaurant and a bar, they say they're going in to eat and they make the right-hand turn into the bar. That's my concern, is that they're getting a bad reputation.
Yeah, look, I have the same concern. This was again on a Thursday night, which is again a night. There's 2 incidents on a Thursday night in a very short period of time, and it is getting the reputation as a college bar, which means that there are a lot of not just underage people but fake IDs that we've got to be concerned about. And I guess my concern is that, you're dealing with very young people, and even in the last incident, the victim was pretty young.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do have some concerns. These things are generally supposed to be educational, but given the short timing, I'm kind of inclined to just be more concerned that this is a practice. It's kind of a let-it-go type thing.
Yeah. Well, I understand your concerns, and I was actually standing before you, it seemed pretty close to 2 years, or a little bit beyond 2 years ago, coming before you as somebody who actually worked at the smokehouse in Brookline back when I was in college and law school, and knowing the type of operation that he has. And I would be shocked if you were ever to say that this place is more of a nightclub than it is a restaurant. The unfortunate part of it is that business is not what it should be at the establishment. His primary goal has always been to serve the food. It's the right food. It's we get nothing but compliments, but it can't sustain as a restaurant only. So we've had to try to cater to a little bit of a music crowd, and by that, you're right. It tends to bring a younger crowd, and we thought, again, he does have experience with working at these nightclubs and working at stadiums, and we thought we put the right team in place. And I can tell you that he's gone through it as part of the tip certification. Alan himself went through everything with his doormans. I'm sorry that you're hearing those type of things, that it's getting that reputation. I know it's not something, he's beyond that in his life, that he wants to have a nightclub and be doing what he was doing when he was 20 years old. Trust me, if it was 70% food and 30% liquor, like it is in Brookline, he'd be thrilled. So I can only tell you that the employees are aware of it, and we hope to be successful here in Lowell and want to continue to put out a good product, and we understand that we can't let these problems happen if we want to be successful here.
All right. What's your pleasure? I guess.
I'll make a motion that we suspend the license for 3 days and hold it in abeyance for 6 months.
All right, I'll second that. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So, record, Mr. Kaplan had some surgery on his throat. So I just.
That's all right.
It's quite okay.
Speedy recovery.
Just a couple of things, members of the commission, before you consider adjourning. First and foremost is an application that you had been given a copy of to do with the transfer of a license from the corporation known as PNC Liquors, Inc. to KJAL Corp. This is the package store licensee at 12 Bridge Street, which is known as Conlon's Liquors. And also that this transfer of license would also include a change of location from its present business address at 12 Bridge Street to a location at 590 Westford Street. When I received the application from the attorney on behalf of the KJAL Corporation, initially the application had some, in my way of defining it, as defects, and I brought that to the attorney's attention in conversation on the telephone. I outlined the gist of our conversation with them in a memo to the board. Subsequent to our conversation with the attorney and I, the application was resubmitted. I found what I think are still defects in the application. But I don't know whether the board had a chance to review that application since our last meeting, but I wanted to bring it to your attention before commenting or making any comment, if I should make any comment, to the attorney on behalf of his client. Because that application has a certain page missing that I think is quite crucial to the
So the application.
ownership.
The application is incomplete?
Is simply put,
Okay.
yes.
Well, then I'm not going to schedule a hearing for an incomplete application.
Sure.
I'd also tell you that if that's the address, I think that's, there may be a zoning issue as well, but that's another issue. But
It could be, I assume.
that's a
that
hair
it's
salon
it's
with that address.
It's a hair salon, and question is, should that be forwarded to the Office of the Developmental Services, to its zoning officer?
if we could make an inquiry just while we're at it, because I think that's I'm pretty sure that's a residential district, and I'm not sure if that's a non-conforming use or if it's zoned for commercial. If it's zoned for commercial, it's not a zoning issue. If it's a non-conforming, then we do. But that's another, before we get into it, we might as well, since we're waiting on the application to be complete, if we could just make an inquiry as to whether or not it's properly zoned area.
What I'll do is I'll send a communication to the Developmental Services Office, CC that to the attorney himself and the law department, just for the sake of the record, regarding the issue of zoning on 590 Westford Street and whether it would be allowed to have a retail package store at that location as it's presently zoned. Also, I wanted to, I presume that the commission will, I will forward to the commission, to the attorney, the fact that the application is incomplete. Right. So that would be, okay.
Okay.
If I may just move on, just in the last day or two, as you may know, record of the License Commission has provided with the City of Lowell's GIS manager, Joe Donovan, a listing of our bars and restaurants in the City of Lowell. And he's been quite efficient in putting it on a map in a GIS format. Presently, it's not accessible to the board. Members of the board are not at City Hall on a regular basis, so you can't see it. And I attempted several means to convey that, pass it on to you, but at the present time, it's not available. And in conversation with Brian Leahy of the law office and Captain Webb, and then Joe Donovan suggested possibly putting it on the public GIS system to make it available not only to the board itself, but to the public.
You know, I actually kind of like that idea of making it available to the public, because then I think that'll help as far as, sorry, I'll wait for that to go by. But I think if the information is available to the public, one, it serves our goal of open and transparent actions, but I think more importantly, members of the public will now have that information. If they come in, if they want to speak, they might be a little bit more engaged, more likely to come before speak in favor or in opposition. I'd also like, if we're going to put it online, if we could have a little drop-down menu for all the violations at any given address, which I think has its own benefit if it's readily accessible. I know that if you look up an attorney online, you can determine whether or not they've ever had any formal sanctions by the Board of Bar Overseers. I don't see why we as the License Commission couldn't make it available to the public to know whether or not a license holder has been found in any violations, which again might prompt more community involvement.
Well, I don't know if that can be, I mean, this is a GIS, which is just identifying, because the simplest way to do it was to create a layer of the GIS map. I would recommend if you were, and this can be done regardless of what you do here, just because they've been working on it. But since there are, my understanding in talking with Mr. Donovan, there are he's put on the 4 types of licenses of the on-premise, off-premise, all alcoholic, and beer and wine. And I just, if he's gonna put these things down, I would just maybe have him identify the 4 different types of licenses by a different, and I don't know if he can do this, but to do a different color that way, because what I'm looking at is a map that lists all of them in blue, and you don't know which one's on premise, you don't know which one's off. I would make that suggestion that he do that. As far as the violations, one, I don't know if it can be done. The second thing would be you would need to update it each time there is a change in ownership, because you wouldn't be allowed to hold violations that happened against a predecessor. I think that well, that can't be, I can tell you that can't be part of the GIS map, that information. Because it's just not built, my understanding is it's just not built that way, that this is related to, property address and, I mean, it's something we can look into, but I know mapping it is different from then inputting that data and doing all that other stuff.
Yeah, like I said, if we could look into it, I know you can look online and see, what addresses different crimes have happened at in any given week within the city, and I know that's a separate system. And I just figured with the GIS, if it's got a block where it can give me information on property, tax, well, that, you know, assessed individuals, that maybe they could add another box.
Right, would that
If
get
the
it-
database is not equipped for it, it's not equipped for it.
Right, and that information gets updated once a year.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
But again, can you think of any reason that we wouldn't want to put it out for public, or, I mean,
No,
if
I
there's
think it
any-
would be a great, but I think as Solicitor Leahy said, just my novice understanding of GIS maps and computer systems, I think it would, someone would have to manually enter the data after every meeting as the violations, and I know Secretary Wynn works hard. I don't think we should put anything more on his plate, so.
Well, it's certainly information on a listing of licensees who have had violations and which have been cited and have been found in violation and have had to take disciplinary measures were taken against them. I can certainly create a file, a document in the simplest format as I presently do with the agenda and any other applications that are online. Create that as a separate document if that's within the bounds of public information in terms of not
And there could be a
compromising.
link on the License Commission website? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
just
saying?
as a point of violations of the license, the License Commission has cited X, Y, and Z bars in the city, or X, Y, and Z package stores in the city in year 2010. Essentially what I can just simply tell you right now that each and every calendar year, the licensing authorities in the cities and towns in Massachusetts are to report to the Alcohol Beverages Control Commission a listing of all the complaints that have heard and the violations that have been alleged and any action that the License Commission has taken on those allegations, findings, if you will. That is submitted to the ABCC on an annual basis. That listing I can make easily available on the License Commission's website by simply just transferring the page from its hard copy to that image, like a PDF document, and it's right there. I mean, it's not probably as, can maybe tweak it a little bit to make it a little bit more reader-friendly in terms of how you might want to interpret what's there. For example, we have had 2 complaints this afternoon against the same licensee, both of which would be on that list. Both obviously were violations. The first finding was that it was placed on file. The second was that there's a 3-day suspension held in abeyance for 6 months for the services to a minor. That's there. That's public record. That will be forwarded to the Alcohol Beverages Control Commission in February of 2011. That information, that's an annual report, part of the annual report. I can make that readily available, you know, within 48 hours easily, on the website, I should say.
Yeah, no, I think that would be good for the public. I mean, if people want to know, they want to know,
Yeah,
you know.
that's,
I think that's a better way than trying to rejigger the GIS.
okay.
I was just trying to be too high-tech. I don't know what the limits are for these computer
I don't know
systems.
I don't know how it all works either, but it doesn't seem to be part of the general menu, but it's like putting an annual report on PDF form and putting up as a link seems to be.
So get the job done.
Exactly.
Michael Zane, do you want to?
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Unless we've got anything here from, no? Mark? Mr. Goldman, anything? All right, then I'll second your motion. All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. And he's already home, Ben.